Josh Hammer, thank you so much for joining us. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Josh, we're seeing reports compare what's unfolding in Israel to 9/11 in the States as in the worst intelligence failure of the time. Now, 9/11 launched the U.S. into the 20-year war in Afghanistan. What do you see in terms of Israel following this attack?
Well, look, let me first start by saying that what happened this weekend is unbearable. It is unspeakable. My fiance is Israeli. She was born there. Virtually all of her family still lives there. One of her brothers lives about 5 miles from Gaza. I mean, I cannot possibly explain to people what this feels like to have gone through this weekend during Shabbat, the Jewish Sabbath, the Jewish holy day, over a holiday as well, over Simchat Torah, a day that religious Jews do not even use their phones to let loved ones know that they are okay. And this was a truly unprecedented land, sea, and air invasion. Obviously, it is the Iranian regime, top to bottom, that was planning these attacks, that was coordinating these attacks with Hamas. We saw the Wall Street Journal later on Sunday confirm that that is the case. Israeli intelligence hasn't quite confirmed that, but all it takes is a quick look at the sophistication of these joint land, sea, and air attacks. This is different in kind, not in degree, different in kind than anything Hamas has ever done since they took over the Gaza Strip back in 2007 after a bloody war with the Palestinian Authority. And Israel has no choice whatsoever to do what they should have done a very long time ago, which is a sustained operation in Gaza to get as many civilians out as possible, but stay in there for as long as needs to happen to demolish any and all infrastructure that even remotely smacks of jihadist infrastructure. What Hamas does is they put rocket launchers, they put all sorts of weapons, the terror tunnels, they put it in mosques, they put it in schools. They are known to use children and women and elderly as human shields under the international laws of war. Every single death of a civilian in that situation is at the feet of Hamas. Israel is going to have to essentially raise most of Gaza to the ground. That is what they are going to have to do. It is going to be ugly. There are going to be terrible images here, but unfortunately, it is what has to be done in order for there to be any peace and stability in the region. And here's the key point: for there to be any kind of last and durable peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians themselves, Hamas has to go. Hamas is an absolute obstacle that you cannot possibly get around other than full eradication of all of their leaders, all of their members, and all of their infrastructure. They are no different than ISIS or any other group. So the fight is going to be in Gaza right now. Obviously, Hezbollah getting in from Lebanon could dramatically complicate the picture. We have a hostage crisis right now. I expect Mossad to start trying to take out the heads of Hamas in Doha. Qatar is where most of them live. I would expect some targeted assassinations inside Qatar. Certainly some targeted assassinations, if not more so, inside Iran itself, inside Tehran. But for now, even holding aside the intelligence failure, which we're going to have to assess as well, the Israelis are going to have to get to the bottom of that. Right now, the focus is on securing the Israeli homeland, reestablishing control over the borders, operational control, and then raising Gaza to the ground while protecting as much civilian life as possible.
And Josh, to your point, Hamas is designated a terror organization by the U.S. and UN. How significant is the timing of this attack, almost 50 years to the day since the Yom Kippur War?
The timing of this attack, from my perspective, is twofold. One is it is, as you just said, almost 50 years to the day since the Yom Kippur War. So clearly the timing was intended to coincide with that. The last time the much vaunted Israeli security and intelligence apparatus failed as much as it did this weekend was 50 years ago in the Yom Kippur War. The other element here of the timing that I think you have to understand here, and I kind of glommed onto this immediately. I saw Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas has been saying the same thing. I think this is absolutely right. Is what is going on here is the Iranian regime, using Hamas as a convenient conduit, is trying to blow up the peace deal that has been emerging in recent months and was set to come along between Israel and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is the most important Arab country in the Sunni Arab world for any number of reasons. They are the custodians of the holy sites in Mecca and Medina. They carry a lot of sway. We saw the interview with Mohammed bin Salman and Brett Baer over in Saudi Arabia recently. They got a lot of attention where he was very optimistic about the prospects of peace with Israel. Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu used a lot of his comments at the United Nations recently talking about this peace. Iran has no interest whatsoever in Israel, further integrating into the Arab world and continuing the circle of peace that President Trump and Netanyahu helped usher in with the Abraham Accords in 2020, with the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan making peace with Israel. So that is the other element of the timing here, is Iran is really, really trying to escalate a hot war and to drive a narrative such that the Saudis would feel too pressured and then would not be able to join the Abraham Accords and make peace with Israel.
And Josh, zooming in on that peace deal, how much of what we're seeing unfolding in Israel right now is due to perceived weakness of the U.S. on the global stage?
Well, unfortunately, all of these dots connect with each other. And to give one very concrete example of that, and you can very clearly see in these videos, in these images, in these clips, you can very clearly see Hamas jihadists wielding American rifles. Now, historically speaking, Palestinian Arabs would typically hold Russian-based AK platforms. Well, where are they getting those U.S. weapons from? Well, it clearly seems that they're getting those weapons likely from Afghanistan, from the botched U.S. withdrawal in Afghanistan. The Taliban obviously hoovered up all of the American weaponry, the American vehicles, the missiles, the small arms, the firearms, everything left behind. And it appears that the Taliban, which earlier today said that they are now threatening to actually join the fight on behalf of Hamas in this war, the Taliban seems to have now sent those guns to Gaza via the Iranian regime as an intermediary, via the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is a terrorist organization as well. And then the IRGC in turn shipped them over to Gaza through Hamas. So it's a whole mess. All these terrible foreign policy blunders all connect with each other. I find it hard to believe that the Russians and perhaps the Chinese did not have some knowledge in advance here. Russia and Iran are close. Even the head of Hamas actually was Ismail Haniyeh. He was actually in Moscow within the past few months. He's obviously very close to the Iranian regime as well, but he was in Moscow. Now, the Russia situation is a little complicated because Israel and Russia also are known to get along just fine. If it's confirmed that Russia had knowledge here, then that would be a devastating blow to the Israeli-Russian relationship. But as of now, what we know is that this was an Iranian-based attack, simply using Hamas as a convenient conduit.
And given all that is unfolding there, what must the U.S. do now?
So the bulk of the fighting, obviously, is going to be Israel. The Israeli military is very powerful. They are going to do what needs to be done. Israel has never once asked, ever, in the entire history of Israel, for anyone to fight a war on their behalf. They've never asked for a single American soldier. So there's no need for that. However, the fact that there are American hostages among the hostages taken in Gaza, I think, does accentuate the need for extremely close intelligence, security, coordination, planning. I mean, the CIA and Mossad, I'm sure, are on the phone with each other 24/7 at this point, trying to figure out how to extract those hostages. But other than that, at the barest of bare minimums, the United States, the Biden administration, has to stop pathologically flirting with the world's #1 state sponsor of jihad, which is the Iranian regime. The Biden administration has been abysmal, of course, in this regard. They have been absolutely abominable, most recently by shipping off 5 Iranian prisoners who committed terrible crimes, along with $6 billion in ransom to Iran, to free 6 Americans, that coming at a price of $1.2 billion per hostage. Many in the Obama-Biden foreign policy orbit are pathologically obsessed with the idea of re-entering the Iran nuclear deal, thus giving money and potentially, God forbid, nuclear weaponry to this fanatical Islamist genocidal regime in Tehran there. So the United States should basically be sanctioning the crap out of Iran, out of Hamas, putting the most stringent, strictest terror financing, money laundering laws known to mankind in place there. One other thing that I think the United States very much should do: the country of Qatar is a very thorny country here. Qatar is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. They might actually be the wealthiest country in the world per capita. They are known to try to kind of win over many in D.C. Sure enough, just last year, I think it was, or a year or two ago, the United States named Qatar a major non-NATO ally. The leaders of Hamas live in Doha, Qatar. So what the United States really should do is use its leverage, including the fact that there is a massive U.S. airbase, Al Udeid airbase, inside Qatar. They should use their leverage to try to pressure Qatar into giving up the heads of Hamas, into basically giving them up to face their crimes against humanity. So that would be a very kind of a keen role for the United States to play that is way short of boots on the ground or anything smacking of that.
Josh Hammer, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.